Stay up to date with PRN for the latest on the coronavirus. Learn ways to stay spiritually vibrant and physically strong on PRN.FM, the Progressive Radio Network.
The World Saxophone Quartet with I Heard That. It's from their 1989 album, Rhythm and Blues. At the time, the World Saxophone Quartet consisted of Julius Hemphill, Oliver Lake, Harriet Blewett, who eventually died, and David Murray. This is Leid Stories. I'm Utrice Leid. I'm hoping that we return to each other today in good health. We and our loved ones are in good health, considering what is going on around us, all around us. And we're going to be talking about that today. I want to talk specifically about the legal aspect of this and why we're not hearing very much about it. People are doing a good job of deciphering the medical and the health aspect of it. Nobody's talking about the legal side of it. And that troubles me. We have a president who is thumping his chest and prating about the need to open up the economy and to get things on the right footing once again, make America strong and great. But my mind still hasn't moved away from the fact that so far the United States leads in the number of deaths from the coronavirus and the number of cases determined to be active. 22,000 deaths and 555,000 cases testing positive, according to the Johns Hopkins data. 22,000 deaths, 555,000 cases. And all we're hearing about is we need to open up the economy. Even Biden is talking about opening up the economy, but his is different from Donald Trump. Donald Trump's idea because he wants to open up the economy safely. See the difference? Trump just wants to open up the economy. Biden wants to open it up safely. But nobody's talking about the huge problem that has not yet been addressed. And I am concerned about that because when you have a president, we know he's reckless, we know he's not a deep thinker, and we know he doesn't take advice. But he has, to his so-called credit, so far, 22,000 dead Americans. 22,000. And 555,000 cases so far diagnosed. It suggests to me that this is a catastrophe. And how do we continue as a nation with just those two facts? And we still manage to ignore them. And we won't ask, what is the responsibility of the president and his administration in this catastrophe? What is their role? And what should be done about it? People are going on, the administration continues as if, well, it's unfortunate, we didn't want that to happen, but it's happened, and now we must move on. Look to the future. No, I want to stay in the present because a major crime has been committed here. And we have to do something about it. I'm not suggesting at all that Donald Trump personally caused 22,000 people to die, or that he personally caused 555,000 people to have the disease. Not suggesting that. But I'm suggesting that he and his administration are principally responsible for creating the environment that eventually led to these catastrophes. Why, he's the president. The buck stops with him. And it has been stopping with him, and nobody is making the link. Suddenly, they keep expunging him from any blame whatsoever, despite the fact that he did nothing with the information given to him, warning him months ahead of the virus actually manifesting itself in the United States. He had that information. It came from his own intelligence community, his own people. They raised the possibility that the United States has to prepare for an onslaught, the likes of which we haven't seen. He didn't. And so 22,000 people are dead. And he has not yet shed a tear. He has claimed zero responsibility for this. And he's the leader of the country, the first person who was told months ago that this was a very real possibility and that we have to prepare for it. No preparation. We have Dr. Anthony Fauci, who has headed up Trump's own task force on the coronavirus and other matters, other diseases that are affecting or could affect American lives, actually saying over the weekend, earlier intervention would have saved lives. Earlier attention would have saved lives. Earlier preparation would have saved lives. Now, what is he saying? He's saying this president and this president's administration did nothing in a timely fashion. Therefore, contributed to the deaths of 22,000 people and causing 555,000 others to contract the disease. That is an indictment to me. You are told by your own agencies, your own intelligence agencies, this is a very real possibility. The country has to prepare for it. You weren't told just once. You were told several times. You dismissed it. What was more important was you showing America and the world what a great leader you are. But you did not pay attention, nor did you assign anyone to pay attention. And guess what? Just as they predicted, just as they informed you, just as they advised you, we have the coronavirus wreaking havoc in the country. So it cannot be separated from you. It can very well be argued that you caused, in large measure, you caused this catastrophe because you ignored it. You refused to prepare for it. In fact, quite the opposite. You turned people's attention to other things because this was not something you found sexy. And if it were to happen, well, it happened. But in the meantime, you have other things to do. So you're not paying attention to that, which means you were a major contributing factor to the deaths and the cases that emerged of coronavirus in the United States. You were a main contributor. And therefore you should be held liable, legally liable. You fell down on the job deliberately. You failed to act in a timely fashion. You failed to respond to an impending crisis that cost lives. You contributed to death and destruction all across this country. That is what should be hanging around your neck. But we find nobody, no entity so far that has dared to suggest that this president is guilty of shirking his responsibility and therefore contributing to the deaths of 22,000 people and to the severe illness of 555,000 others, and has not been chastised, has not been brought in any arena to compel him to answer questions and to account for this craziness, this slackness. It doesn't concern him, he thinks. They're not, I don't care about that. I have other things I'm thinking about. Making money. Helping my friends make money. My family make money. Who cares if people are dying? You know, death comes inevitably. We will all die. How could people possibly accuse me, the President of the United States, of willfully contributing to the death and suffering of hundreds of thousands of people? And then you sit there like you're totally innocent. And we are allowing it. No member of Congress so far, no member of any party so far, nobody in Congress with such a great conscience so far has even dared to suggest that in this matter, the president is a criminal and should be prosecuted as such. This is not a theoretical discussion. The president had facts. The president had been advised. The president had information that this awful thing was about to happen. He had months to do something about it and did nothing. What is that? Dereliction of duty? A soldier would be brought up on such a charge. An officer would be brought up on such a charge. You have information that disaster is going to strike, and you have specific information about what the nature of that disaster would be. You are the President of the United States. You do nothing. And your entire administration does nothing. And to date, are we hearing people in the news discussing it? No. Where are the activists? Are they discussing it? No. The leftists, all the righteous people, are they discussing this? Is this something that should be taken on in the name of the people, to defend the people? Well, of course, many of them are dead now. But this president has to be brought to justice. This is not a bureaucratic thing that just happened, and you know, all bureaucracies have their soft spots. No, this is a willful president who calculated even months ago when he got the information. It was not in his interest to raise this matter as of national concern. All of his people who are there, the vice president of this and the secretary of that, nobody said a word, and they waited for the hammer to fall. And did we get hammered? 22,000 people got hammered. And 555,000 people, in the meantime, are suffering from the disease. They've been diagnosed with it. And we have a criminal intent here. I would argue, well, I'm not a legal scholar, but it seems to me to be relevant, a relevant argument. And he should be brought before some kind of body that should be formed to question him publicly, to question the members of his so-called administration who are busy trying to figure out how to fatten their respective investment portfolios rather than doing their first job, which is to secure the safety of this country and its citizens. This is reprehensible. This man should not be in the Oval Office one more minute. We used to think of societies, countries, that a situation like this, they would be very deliberate about showing their anger against a leader who would do something like this. Or they'll give him a trial. But we know how these trials would end. Because it's so heinous a crime. It is so anathema. It is so contrary to those things we call American values that a president of the United States and his entire administration would be implicated in actively conspiring to let people die and let people suffer. They're safe because they have the information. Imagine months going by. You know something that nobody else knows. And you do not care about the consequences of that for your own people, your own country. That is the very height, it seems to me, of treason. The president needs to be brought before the people, before a court of law. He and all of the people who knew or who should have known. And let us hear them actually say it. Let President Trump go on one of his lying jags and say, oh, I didn't know anything about it. Nobody told me anything about it. I was just doing the best I can to deal with a bad situation, which was told to you. It was written down. It was in a document given to you by the highest levels of intelligence of this country. What, you saying you don't trust them as the head of state? You don't trust the information they're giving you? Well, that's an additional problem. But it's your problem. I'm concerned that we are not hearing this discussion at all. And yet, it is part of the national crises that we are suffering from right now. He needs to be compelled to answer these questions. Black people, Latinos, people of color generally are dying disproportionately, are suffering from this coronavirus disease disproportionately. I haven't heard one, not one of them, raise this question. Folks are just mesmerized by a $1,200 check or $1,000 bribe to shut up. And don't fight me. I'm the person giving you this money for free. You should love me, adore me. Why would we want to now discuss bad things like withholding information, refusing to act on information, having no plans? Even now, the president has turned on his key advisor, Dr. Fauci, and has openly said he has not hidden anything. He's telling the nation, I want to fire him. What is Dr. Fauci's crime? He's actually doing his job of advising in consultation with others what ought to be done. Trump is angry that he is not. He's being checked by Fauci and others, and he is not a president to be checked. He is to do whatever he wants to do, whenever he wants to do it, however he wants to do it. He's a renegade, power hungry, absolutely crazy with power. But that's the subject I want to discuss today. Why we're talking everything about the coronavirus disaster on our hands. And nobody is discussing what is legally to be done with the president around this, the president and his entire administration, those who are responsible. This should happen now. A major inquiry ought to be launched now. We ought to understand now how these calamities unfolded, how they were permitted to unfold, who was responsible. We need to do that now. I'll take this break, come back to your thoughts at 888-874-4888, and understand I'm looking for answers today. We're looking for answers to this question. The question is, the president has been advised by the highest levels of intelligence in this country, and he was advised months ago so that he would have a leg up on preparing the country for the disaster that eventually has befallen it. What do we do now? right after this short break. You're listening to Leid Stories on PRN.FM. We're talking about a subject that has not yet been raised, and that is the president's inaction, deliberate inaction, in a matter that in which he was apprised months ago by his intelligence community. And that was that a major catastrophe was headed our way, called the coronavirus. It was going to cause a great deal of pain and suffering, and that the country needed to prepare itself to respond at whatever levels were deemed appropriate. But Trump did nothing with the information, and so the inevitable became the inevitable. We had 20,000 deaths so far, according to Johns Hopkins, and 555 cases testing positive in this country. Did it have to be? What is the apparatus of government going to do about this? Congress. What are the people prepared to do about this? That's the question on the table right now. 888-874-4888 is the number to call. Ed from Queens, you're on the air.
Good afternoon, Utrice. How you doing?
Okay, Ed. How are you?
I hear you. I hear you, but I totally agree with you that this man is a criminal. He should be brought up against criminal charges, dereliction of duty, negligent homicide, maybe even murder. I mean, if you want to look at the statutes that go with a murder charge in New York State, and willful indifference, depraved indifference to human life. Yes, but he's only a manifestation of what we as a people have allowed this government and this country to become. I mean, this is not anything new. Katrina was forewarned. The 9/11 was forewarned. We've known these disasters to come, and we've elected people, and we've allowed people to maintain office that have no vision, that have no moral purpose, that have no care other than the dollar, other than the artificial trappings of power, other than support, or other than getting reelected. And this is he's the epitome of our lack of vigilance, of our lack of forethought, of our lack of being involved in the political process. Like it or not, this is all we got. And this is what you get when you don't get involved. You have a political novice who's apathetic, who's a narcissist, who's mentally deranged, and has a career of non-caring, of selfishness, of complete inaptitude, surrounded by fellows who are also inept, because that's the only way he can maintain his security. And this is what you get. These people are totally unprepared for anything, and this is what you get. And if the American people don't get off of their behinds and really hold these people to task, and start doing some civil disobedience, start doing some strikes, start doing some rent strikes, start doing like Frederick Douglass said, power can seize nothing without a demand, and we got to start demanding, else we're going to be dead.
Could you give me one actionable thing that can be done at this moment?
Well, I always say nationwide strike. Everybody that works for a living in this country, stop working. I mean, now it's difficult because of the shelter in place and the stipulations of this virus. But once we've come out of this thing, I believe it's going to run its course. I mean, if you look at the history of viral infections in the modern age, they do have a tendency of running their course, and there will be some herd immunity that starts to take place. It might take some time with the inaptitude of the people we have in charge, but once this thing clears, we can't forget. We can't have that momentary memory.
You're talking as if you're so sure that this predicted course of the virus would actually occur. We don't know anything about this virus. We don't know how it behaves. We don't know how it will behave. We don't know very much about this virus.
Well, I can only base it on past history. I mean, that's the only thing you can base. That's the only thing you can make any logical predictions on. You can look at the past history, how viruses have run from typhoid Mary to the Spanish flu, and you can see that a certain percentage of the population dies. I'm not trying to be morbid or callous. A certain percentage of the population dies. A herd immunity develops. A vaccine comes out, and things start to calm down. But the problem with American people, you can't have short-term memory. You can't let these people get away with this. You can't. You got to remember what happened. We got to remember the inaptitude. We got to remember the carelessness. We got to remember the general stupidity and insanity of this moment. And because when things do calm down, people have a tendency to forget. Just like this $1,200 garbage. That's nothing. What is that? That is absolute. That can't even pay your freaking rent in New York. And people are falling over this. One commentator said this morning on a news show I was listening to, I don't want to poo-poo this because somebody with a family of four and they'll get $500 for a kid and this and that. I don't want to poo-poo it. It could be a lifesaver. No, it's not. It's garbage. It's totally unmitigated garbage. And to let anybody off of the hook by throwing you a bone like this, then you deserve exactly what you get.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your feedback. Tony from Florida, you're on the air.
Hi, Trace. Good afternoon.
Hello.
Thanks for taking my call.
Thanks for calling.
I blame President Trump for a lot of what we're going through, mainly the white supremacist way in which they closed the certain restrictions from countries coming into the United States. If you notice, right away they closed the border with China, but they hesitated extremely, even after everybody knew that Italy was a incubator of this disease. They hesitated to close the border with Europe, and even when they closed the border with Europe, it took them several days after that to close the border with England because, of course, England is the mother country of the United States, so we can't offend them.
But let's stay on topic. We're talking about a president who knew months ago, who was told months ago by his own intelligence agencies that something awful was about to happen. There was no public discussion of it. There was no preparation for it. And here we are months later with all these people dying and contracting the disease.
I'm going to tell you, see, this is what was happening. Supposedly, this disease started during the middle of November in China. In December was when the United States and the intelligence community was made aware of the fact that this disease had broken out. That's exactly around the time that China started to lock down the city of Wuhan, right before the Chinese New Year. And at the time, if you recall, the United States was consumed, the media, okay, because the media is the one who breaks these stories and makes the public aware of what's going on in the world. The media was consumed with the impeachment. And the impeachment, the tail end of the impeachment and the spreading of this disease worldwide, okay, because China failed to contain it within its borders, correlated more or less around the same time. So the media was consumed with the impeachment process than this virus spreading out into the world.
Yeah, but you're giving us a historical record.
Correct.
I'm asking a very direct question. What should be done with a president who allegedly knew, who had been prepared by his intelligence agencies, that this was going to hit the United States? He did nothing. He said nothing. He did not prepare the country. And as a consequence of that, we have several thousand people dying needlessly, and we have still more thousands who are suffering.
It's hard to say.
The logical course of action here?
The logical course of action is to, like you said, put in place an investigation of who knew what, okay? And not only that, because we got to remember something. This president supposedly gutted out the what they call that, the department where the CDC. He was gutting out federal agencies in the United States, and he's continuing to do that. And because that's one of the conservative ideals.
Yeah, we understand all that. We accept all of that you're saying. I'm asking the question, and I want you to address it. What should happen now in light of these things, in light of these facts? What should happen now?
You should have congressional hearings as to so that we can trace back before people forget, because the Americans do have short-term memory when it comes to things like, with anything, we have short-term memory with everything, because I do believe that this will happen again, and we will be unprepared again. So that being said, this in a capitalist country, this is a capitalist country, Trees. Everybody knows that. This is the most extreme capitalist country in the world. Capitalist country cut costs, all in the name of profits, okay? They're not going to close down a country, okay, not thinking that it's going to happen here, what happened in China, okay? We're not going to do that. They hesitated. It took them forever to finally pull the trigger and say we have to shut it down. And they went kicking and screaming at it, especially with a president that all he has as an accomplishment was the Wall Street numbers all-time highs. He wasn't not going to risk that, especially in an election year. This was a perfect storm for mistakes to be made. That's why it's important to have the congressional hearings.
Now comes the question of accountability by those of us we are considered the people. Something has come to light. It is dangerous.
Yes.
It is scary. It is wrong. What do we do? How do we deal with it? That's the question.
We have to have congressional hearings to make sure that something like this does not happen again. This is what we have to do, because capitalists do not want to spend a couple of dollars. Now everybody in the country has to pay a huge price for what? A few $billions of dollars, okay? Bill Gates, has been talking about for a long time.
You're going off. I like to stay on topic. But thank you so much for your call today. Jay from New York, you're on the air.
How are you, Teresa? I hope your weekend is well and that you're doing well. I will say this. You are putting forth a serious indictment on the ineptness and the mishandling of this situation that I totally agree with. And to be honest with you, it continues today. I think the one thing that we have to do is we have to continuously spread this narrative that you put forward today in regards to how this president did not act upon the information that was presented to him and waited a long period of time to move forward to try and put this pandemic on the front burner to help save the lives of our people in this country. Now, the thing is this. How this will be handled will be determined what he does moving forward in regards to this pandemic. And from what I'm observing and what I'm seeing, for him to be the only one to make that decision is totally disastrous for this country. Because as I'm observing what's being done now and what's being said now, it looks like he's going to try and open up this country May 1st or before May 1st, and that right there will be devastating for this country and for the lives of the American citizens. And I really don't think that the American citizens understand what this pandemic is about and how it could continuously spread and how it will affect the lives of millions of people in this country. And I'm just hoping that people like yourself will have the foresight to continuously express the ineptness, the inability, and the lack of leadership that we truly need at this time to be able to move forward to try and contain this situation that is something that will be going on for the next 2 years, in my estimation.
I'm saying more than that. I'm saying it appears that this president has committed a crime.
Oh, yes.
And allowed all this tragedy to happen by not taking heed to the information that was given to him as the head of state, and by continuing to cover the fact that he literally made decisions that proved to be fatal to thousands of people. This is a crime. And we don't have a sense of outrage about it. We have a sense that, oh, well, first we'll do this and then we'll do that. No, this is a crime. How do we react to this crime?
Yeah, but the thing is, most people, to be honest with you, do not understand that it's a crime because nobody has really done what you have laid out today to show how the crime was committed and the reasons why it is a crime. And that's why we have to get to the point to where we're in a position to put forward the narrative on what he did was criminal. Because it's
but
no
we
way
have members of Congress who could determine it was a crime. We have senators who could determine it was a crime. We have military people who could determine it was a crime. We have people in the judiciary who could determine it was a crime. So how come nobody is raising the question?
Because it's not their interest. It's not their interest, nor do they have the ability to articulate it as a crime, nor do they wish to articulate it as a crime, because they're trying to say then it would be seen as a form of treason. And, we must be honest. What the president has done to the American people is a form of treason if it's true that he knew about this a month or so before it really hit on the level that it has. I mean, if you listen to his press conference, I think it was February 3rd or 5th, he said that this was not something that was going to be long-lasting and that there was only a few people who had died for it and that, it would be under control and that we were dealing with it. And from that point on, it seems to me like all hell broke loose, and now he's trying to change the narrative. And for some reason, the media is not trying to articulate it on the level that it should be and show what he's done. So, I mean, we're in an uphill battle, And if people like yourself continue to speak out, maybe it'll catch on, sister, and maybe it won't catch on. But the reality is we have to do something in regards to this narrative, or we're going to be in a very, very lost and sticky position. Because let me say this. This is not getting any better. It's heading to a worse position if certain things aren't done, and if he doesn't listen to the people who are the true authorities on this, and as he says, use his brain to determine what we're going to do. All we can ask for is this, Eutrice, is for the mayors and governors of the states to, for the first time, stand up and implement and stand by states' rights. That will be the only way that we may be able to keep this under wraps. But if they capitulate to him, and if they go along with this, we are in for a serious, serious situation and crisis in this country. And believe me, I feel that if I get it, I'm out of here. Thank you and have a good day.
You too. Thank you so much. Ma'at, you're on the air.
Greetings to the truly beloved family. First of all, and I do have a direct answer to your question, but let me just say that Trump didn't call for the stay home. That were the governors, so he's not in charge there, so that's some consolation. But this is what I suggest, because the brothers' suggestion around Congress, they have not even set up a virtual space, and they're talking about after-the-fact commission, so that's going nowhere right now. Ramsey Clark, former Attorney General of Jimmy Carter's administration, a truly beloved, I have to call him a brother and probably now an ancestor, because he did something, I can't remember the details, but when craziness was going on, he set up, particularly around crimes, and we need to research it, but he set up a tribunal, okay? And a tribunal, in his model, would bring out the facts. I recently found out that 700 people, and that's an extraordinary number, of the Obama administration, maybe certain selected 700, tried to brief Trump around coming pandemics and I guess other issues, and he fired them all. There are two playbooks that would come out in the tribunal. One from the Obama administration that set up a directorate. And what's interesting about the directorate that was in the National Security Council preparing for a pandemic, it was all throughout government. So the bottlenecks of getting paper towels and toilet tissue and all of that wouldn't have occurred because they had put people in transportation and commerce, etc. So Trump destroyed all of that. And before that, there was another playbook about a coming pandemic. So I would see a tribunal that would deal with criminal charges like you're talking about, Eutrice, and that would bring out all the facts leading up to this. And it's not thousands, it's tens of thousands of people. And, of course, we disproportionately are affected.
All right. We have to stop there because we're out of time. But a very considered opinion. Thank you for it. This brings us to the end of our program today. I keep saying that the problem is not trying to hide from us. It's right there. It's right there in front of our faces. And we can't seem to tackle it. We can't seem to get answers. We can't seem to get the kind of reaction and the level of results that are necessary, especially when we're talking about the leader of the state. We have rights. How do we exercise these rights? How do we make people understand that we have problems with this? This is not all hunky-dory and we're going through a tough time, but by gum, by golly, we'll get through it. It's not one of those things. It's a very serious thing. It has had major repercussions in our communities, and we ought to stick with it in order to get answers and action. Thanks so much for tuning in today, and let's get together again tomorrow, and we see what conversations we'll have then. Bye-bye.